Welcome back to StampedeTV. I'm here with Dr. Dodgen-Magee, who's been on campus with us last week, and we're going to talk for a little while. Thank you for coming to campus with us.
Yeah, you bet.
So first off, can you just give us an overview of what it is you do?
Yeah, I'm a clinical psychologist from Portland, Oregon, and I also have a huge interest in social media, video gaming, basically all forms of media and technology, and the way in which it's impacting the developing sense of self, relationships, the brain, and our own way of kind of living in our bodies. So I spend part of my time in Portland in private practice, and then another huge part of my time reading research and kind of immersing myself in pop culture to keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening. And then I travel around the country and speak to either universities or physicians and educators about how we are all being shaped by the technology that we spend our time with.
Okay, and you mentioned traveling around and talking in a lot of places. Can you give us kind of just a brief overview of what it is that you talk about?
Yeah, so I talk mostly about those things. I talk about the impact that kind of our saturation in media and with technology has on us. And then I try to spend a bulk of time also talking about the ways in which we are each individually intelligent. So there are lots of ways that we can be smart, and when we are interacting with technology, it tends to reinforce just one or two of those. So from there, then I like to also kind of launch into, especially on university campuses like this, launch into talking about the huge power that taking some time away from our screens has for us. So there's some pretty compelling research about how taking 10 minutes a day away from screens, doing something like mindfulness meditation or contemplative prayer, can double the gray matter in the part of your brain that's impacted by overuse of screens. So that's typically what I do. I try to focus on those three areas.
Okay. And now one thing that stood out to me, I was at, you talked in chapel about something called spotting. It's a technique that dancers use. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so spotting is a technique that dancers and athletes of all kinds and singers use it, but it's basically finding a point that is outside of you that you can focus on regardless of what's going on in or around you that keeps you on target. So singers or musicians use a certain note that they all tune to as a spotting point. Dancers use a spotting point that's out on the horizon that they gaze at when they turn. And I like to think about the spotting point of having kind of a strong internal sense of self where one also is able to encounter the truth that God loves them and God is for them regardless of how much they accomplish or what they do, and having that strong spotting point inside of us so that we don't have to look to our screens and social networks and games and all the places that we look to gain a sense of self. Instead, we have that firmly inside.
Okay, that's really cool. You were telling me a little bit about, right before we came on, you were telling me a little about something called Hands-Free Friday. Can you explain that for me?
I can. So Hands-Free Friday is, I wanted to start a movement. When I leave a campus, I typically leave with a flood of students who I've made connections with, who I stay in touch with. And so Hands-Free Friday became a way that I could issue a challenge every week. And it's basically, the challenge is a simple one, and I post it on Facebook and Instagram. Something that you have to put your phone down to be able to do for at least 10 minutes every Friday, and then to just kind of notice how that feels, and maybe then to challenge yourself to do that outside of there. And then it's also become a place since then where people will post their own ideas of activities that are fun and creative and that help them kind of break free from their phone for periods of time.
Now in chapel today you had us do an exercise where for 10 minutes we just had to sit and just be kind of alone in our thoughts. Is this something you do a lot? And if so, do you get a lot of positive responses from students from that?
It is something I do a lot, and it's something that gets mixed response. Usually positive. However, sometimes people fall asleep. I've had that happen a lot. I had that happen recently where there was quite a bit of snoring occurring. But usually I get a good deal of positive response. Recently, I thought it was really interesting. I was flooded with email from students, and then I actually started getting emails from parents who the students had told their parents, and their parents had gone on and watched the chapel. And that was really beautiful and felt really rewarding, because that's all I really want to do, is help people kind of find ways of pulling back. Our engagement with technology tends to make us anxious, tends to make us overwhelmed, and overstretched. And so my whole goal is to really do what we did this morning, which is help us be able to unplug for small points of time and replenish.
Okay. Now just one last question. Do you have any last piece of advice for college students in regards to technology?
I would say yes. Watch to be moderate. Everything about the world, everything about your classes, your faculty, your administration is going to tell you to be overly engaged in digital spaces. And a rule that I live by in my own life is that it's easier to establish healthy norms than it is to break bad habits. And we all have a lot of habits that we've created around our tech use. But if you can pull back from those and set some norms where you say, you know, for every 10 texts I send, I'm going to have one face-to-face conversation, or for every I don't know, voice message I send, I'm going to make one phone call, or to set some norms that keep you engaging with embodied people and that keep you having experiences in your own body with all of your senses, not just your visual and auditory ones, will make your life so much happier and more fulfilling in the long run.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming and talking to me.
Thank you.
That's all we have for today on Have You Heard? Tune in after the break for more Stampede TV.